So this video is all about performing order of operations. So we're going to go through some problems, and we need to talk about what is the correct order when we're combining using the operations that we know now. So what we know about is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and we've seen exponents in the past, so we're going to use some of those as well. Right? So if you take a look at my examples here, I want to show you kind of two different ways where I'm combining these numbers, and if I make a decision about how to combine them in different ways, I will end up with different answers. So this is why this is important. Okay? If I go through this problem here and I say, let's do it the bad way, I'm just going to start at the left and I'm going to keep going all the way to the right. Well, 2 plus 3 gives me 5, and 5 times 8 gives me 40. And 40 divided by 4 gives me 10, and 10 plus 8 gives me 18, and 18 minus 5 gives me 13. And so I'm saying, hey, look, the answer's 13. Okay? If I do this in a different order and I say, you know what, I'm going to do 3 times 8, well, that's 24, okay, and kind of bring everything down. Okay? I'm going to put these together too, say 8 minus 5 is 3, and then I'm going to put these together and say that looks like 6, okay? And then I'm going to say, well, this looks like 8, and 8 plus 3 is only 11, right? So I just put them in order. This was kind of like left to right. I went straight across and just did the operations as I saw them, and I got a 13. In this case, I did them in a specific order, which we're going to talk about in a second, and I got an 11. Okay, this is bad. Okay, so note that. Put it in big, bold letters. Bad. Do not just go from left to right. We have to put them in the order that has been decided that we're going to put these numbers together. So here is that order. Okay, when you are combining numbers, you're going to combine any grouping symbols first. So you're going to start with the most inner grouping symbols, which usually it's parentheses, but it might be brackets, square brackets, or anything like that. Any kind of grouping symbol. Then we're going to simplify any exponents, and then we're going to combine multiplication and division from left to right. So even though it's, I know you guys have seen this acronym down here, PEMDAS, it's not do all of your multiplications, then do all of your divisions. These are kind of going to be done together, right? So we're going to do multiplication and division, all left to right, okay? And then the same thing with addition and subtraction. You're not going to do all of your additions, then do all of your subtractions. These kind of go together at the same time. So addition and subtraction are kind of versions of the same thing, so we're going to do them together. Okay, so we're going to do all of our grouping symbols, then all of our exponent work, then all of our multiplication and division, and then all of our addition and subtraction. We have to do them in that order, and if you don't, you just saw what happened a second ago, you might get a different answer than what you're supposed to get. So let's take a look at a problem, okay? And I'm going to ask you to simplify. So here's your quick instructions about what simplify means. Simplify means to combine as many items as possible. If things don't go together, fine, we won't combine them, but since we're dealing with numbers, that's going to be okay. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, remembering my little acronym up here, PEMDAS, I'm just going to write it down so we have it. It says first start with any parentheses. So go inside the parentheses and do whatever it says. Kind of treat this as its own problem. This just says 8 plus 7, so I'm going to bring that down and say 15. And then I'm going to just bring everything else along, and I'm only going to deal with any parentheses. So this now says 2 times 3, which is 6. So once I complete everything in the parentheses, I'm going to get rid of the parentheses and kind of put a little check mark here and say I am done. I'm going to look for exponents. I don't see any exponents. If you don't know what an exponent is, that would be like a number raised up here, but I don't have any, so I'm going to say sorry, no exponents to worry about, I'm done. So again, here's where you got to be careful. This says M, then D is what it looks like. A lot of people say, do all your multiplication, then do all of your division, and some people would try to do 3 times 9 first, because it says do multiplication first. But we're going to remember that these go together. Okay? They are not one, then the other. It's do them all at the same time. So I'm going to start from the left, and I'm going to find my first one of either of these, which in this case, there's that division symbol. So I'm going to say 15 divided by 3 gets done first. That's 5. Okay? And then I'm going to do 5 times 9, which is 45. Okay? And if I look at my problem now, I don't see any more multiplication and division. This is done. Last step, again, left to right, all of your addition and subtraction goes in order. So 45 minus 6 is 39. So that would be my final answer. Okay? If you would have done this the opposite way and put these together first because you thought it was all multiplications have to be done first, you would have been stuck in some weird problem that said 15 divided by 27. And we don't know how to do that yet, right? We're kind of stuck there. So if you notice, even though division came first in the problem, even though multiplication comes first in PEMDAS, we're going to do the division if it shows up first as I'm traveling from left to right. So be very, very careful about that. That's an important thing. Okay, so let's do our next problem. So this one says, again, PEMDAS says, first do parentheses. So I'm going to just simplify this. 12 minus 9, well, 12 minus 9 is 3. Okay, and then I'm going to have this exponent here. I got rid of my parentheses, but I'm going to put the little squared there. Okay, times 6 plus 4. I see another parentheses here, so I still have to do that. And I'm going to leave this one because I don't have like an operation here, so I don't want to just put the 4 and the 6 next to each other. I'm leaving the parentheses because we need to talk about what that means. Okay, so now I'm going to say all of my parentheses are simplified. I know this one's still here, but we did simplify it down to just the number 6. So now I'm going to do all of my exponents. Okay, so my exponents in this case, I do have one of those. So let's talk about what it means. Okay. When I see an exponent of 2, what it means is multiply this number 3 together that many times. So I'm going to kind of come off to the side here and say 3 squared really means 3 multiplied with itself twice. Okay, if I had like a 7 here, I would do 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, 7 different times. Okay, so we're going to say in this case 3 squared, 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay, times 6 plus 4 with that parenthesis 6. And now I'm going to do, again, multiplication and division together. Luckily, we don't have any division, so it's just multiplication. 9 times 6, I can put together, that's 54. I'm going to skip right over this plus sign, and we got to talk about what this means. So this is 4 parentheses 6, and there's no operation in between. Whenever that happens, we're going to assume that they mean multiplication. So this is really 4 times 6. 4 times 6 is 24. Last step says do any addition and subtraction, so I'm just going to make sure that I do all my addition and subtraction. So that looks like 78. Okay, so that would be my final answer, 78. So we kind of saw everything show up in that problem. Right, let's do one more. Okay, this one's a little bit more complicated. So we're still doing PEMDAS. So I'm going to come along and do all of my parentheses. So here's the one little, last little important point. The first one is, anytime exponents have a bunch of stuff happening up here, we're going to pretend like there's a parentheses around this, because we can't use the exponent until we've simplified it. So we treat exponents that are not simplified like this just like their own parentheses. So here's what I'm going to do. 100 minus, leave that base of 4 alone, and I'm going to simplify this. I'm going to treat this like its own PEMDAS. Okay, and I'm going to look at this. Okay, so every parentheses is kind of like starting the problem over again and treating it like its own problem. So I'm going to say in this case, no parentheses here, no exponents here. I do see a division, right? There's no multiplication, but I do see division. This is really 6 divided by 3, which is 2. And 1 plus 2 is 3. So I'm going to bring that exponent down. That's like a simplified parentheses. Plus, and I have another parenthesis. So this parenthesis that starts here and ends way over here, okay, I'm going to treat as its own problem. So within this parentheses, I'm going to start over, and I'm going to say, let's do PEMDAS on this. Okay. So now looking at this, I'm going to say inside of this, start at the beginning. Do I have any parentheses? I do. So I'm going to start right here and say this is 6 times 4, which this little dot showing up might also mean multiplication. So instead of the X meaning multiplication, you might also see a dot. Okay, so I'm now looking at this, looking at my PEMDAS, and it says multiplication and division's next. So this is going to happen first, 24 and 6. So that's 30 when I add those together. So I'm going to erase all that work because it's in my way. Okay, this whole big parentheses, when I use PEMDAS on that, becomes 30. Okay, so I just simplified that. All of that work, even though we've done kind of all the operations, that our original problem was just the P. Okay, next I'm going to do exponents. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and say I do see an exponent. 4 times 4 times 4. I hope you'll trust me. You can kind of do the work yourself. Is 64 plus 30. Okay, so here's that last situation. That was my multiplication. I don't have any multiplication and division, right? If I'm looking at my last step here, no multiplication and division across, so that's kind of skipped here. Wasn't necessary. And it says again, do addition and subtraction. So be careful. These are one thing we're going to do from left to right. So some people might look at this and want to do 64 plus 30 first, because you look up here and you see it says add. Okay, but we're going to do all of our addition and subtraction from left to right. So I'm going to first come over here and do 100 minus 64. Okay, well, to do 100 minus 64, I need to borrow. Right, so from here, this is going to become a 9, and that's going to become a 1. So this says 10 minus 4 is 6, 9 minus 6 is 3. So this is going to become 36 plus 30, which is 66, and that's my final answer. Okay, so lots of little details that we have to worry about. Sometimes we have to do, even though again this says multiplication, division, we might do division, multiplication. We also have to worry about grouping symbols like parentheses inside of parentheses, and we also have to worry about exponents being treated as parentheses. So lots and lots of little details. So this is a practice thing. So you're going to try out a lot of problems just to get used to all of these little details. Okay, and then you will be the master of order of operations.